MIM Virtual Expo 2021.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today for my talk on leading engineers through an interrupt-driven environment. My name is Thomas Munson and I'm the Global Technical Operations Center Manager for Box. So today you're going to be hearing from lots of industry leaders around major incident management principles. I'm just going to talk to you about something slightly different. Last year I gave you a talk on how NOCs interact with major incident management and the role that they play during an incident. Today, I'm just going to take a step back and look at how do we make sure our engineers are prepared for instance, through the notion of a pre-mortem. Hopefully you'll learn something new and interesting. That I'd love to hear some feedback if you get time. And also, before I start, I just want to thank Adam and the team for inviting me along. So let's get on with the presentation. Most of us in attendance today understand only too well the importance of a post-incident review or post-mortem, in particular the action items that we get as an output, because those action items lead to the continuous improvement plans, the development of strategy to ensuring that we are maintaining the customer experience. Now, if we use that same forensic approach to put measures in place that minimize prolonged downtime, we can start thinking about the notion of a pre-mortem. So the principles of a pre-mortem were put in place by Gary Klein when thinking about what could go wrong during a project lifecycle. If we think of it in terms of what could go wrong during an incident, we can start preparing, put measures in place that affect the outcome positively. So as we go through this talk, I'm going to just keep referring back to the pre-mortem principles and how can we apply that to how we lead our engineers and how we lead our teams, especially in this interrupt-driven environment. So it goes without saying that when we're doing a pre-mortem on our engineers, it's all about making sure at the outset we're hiring for the right kind of temperament during an incident. So you could have all the technical acumen in the world, but if you can't handle pressure very well, once it comes to an incident, it's going to be the customer that suffers, ultimately, because we're not going to be able to think in the best interest of the customer or of the business. We're not going to be thinking about the direct cause rather than the root cause. We're not going to be able to bring in the right teams to be able to have those conversations, and also to be able to trust but verify during those heated times. So it starts with the right hiring strategy. And so during an interview, you should be asking questions that test for temperament. How good are they at collaboration? Are they able to pull on resources when they need to? Can they think of any experiences where they've had to think fast or had to come up with a quick solution? They're the kind of questions that you need to be asking during an interview to make sure that you're hiring engineers that can react well under pressure. So you've made sure that you've hired the right talent for the role with the right temperament to handle incidents. So the next step of the pre-mortem is to have a look at the onboarding process, make sure that it's really honed in to ensure that we're setting up the engineers for success. So it could be things like tooling, it could be things like, is there some instant training that really sets them up for what they're about to experience? What's the ramp up time? How long are they going to need before you're going to put them into shift or to start actively monitoring? So the onboarding process is really crucial because if you don't set the foundations correctly, it can affect how that engineer performs further down the line. So processes aren't just important for the onboarding stage, they're also really important once the engineer is in role, because ultimately that's going to guide them when there's confusion or stress. They can fall back on well-honed processes that give them all the context they need to be able to make the right decisions. So doing a pre-mortem on our processes is a very valuable exercise. So you can think about or even run some exercises where you're going to sit down and have a look at those processes. And we'll talk about tabletop exercises in a little while, but ultimately what you're trying to do is find the stress points within those processes. Where do we need improvement? Where is the picture not entirely clear? What can we do about it now to make sure when we get into an incident, we're not going to be scrambling, trying to find the right information. So the most crucial part of any incident is that first 5 to 10 minutes where you're really in that discovery stage. To try and stop it from becoming a scavenger hunt, you really need to be able to be sure that you can fall back on processes that help you find the direct cause quickly, so that you can mitigate as quickly as possible, so that you get the customer experience back up. So bearing this in mind, it's really crucial that we take training seriously. And if we think from a pre-mortem perspective for training, we're looking at what could potentially go wrong during an incident. What could my engineers potentially not be prepared for? And do I have the right kind of training in place to ensure that we're being proactive with making sure that we're removing any potential blockers during an incident? So it could be training around how to perform failovers, or how to perform escalations, how to look at log files, or it could be training around how do we take past incident data and use that to help guide our decision making during an incident. So at this stage, like I say, we're really looking at our training processes. Are they fit for purpose? Are they as thorough as they can be? But also, are they bite-sized enough for the engineers to be able to take the context that they need? And are they timely enough as well? Because there's nothing worse than going through some training and not touching it for a while. So you need to make sure that they're timely, but also regular as well. So the final pre-mortem item that I want to talk about today is probably one of the most important, and that's about doing a pre-mortem of yourself as a coach or as a leader. Are you able to say that you're putting everything in place to ensure that your engineers and your teams have everything that they need to be able to do their job safely and productively? So have you given them the right tools that they need for the job? Are you giving them training? Are you giving them opportunities to expand their skills and their knowledge beyond the day-to-day? Are you able to give them experiences of being put under stress so that they're able to react quickly during an incident? So if you're not doing that, then really you need to start doing that. It's really important that as managers or as leaders, we understand that development itself is as important as development of our teams. So that wraps up everything I want to talk about in terms of leading our engineers through an interrupt-driven environment. I hope you found this talk interesting and you learned something new. Maybe you weren't aware of Premortems previously, or maybe you've just not thought of it in the context that I've presented. I'd really love to hear your feedback on this presentation. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. It'd be great to hear from you. Enjoy the rest of the expo. Thank you.
MIM Virtual Expo 2021. MIM